Greetings, 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 good people, and welcome to another edition of Cat's Corner One-on-One Live. I am super excited about, well, you know what? Yeah, I say this every week, but it's true. I'm super excited about this week's guest because we have been longtime co-conspirators. I call us the Zan and Jana of DC nightlife culture when he was here. The first person to ever get behind an LSP event as a sponsor and learned so much, taught me so much. And I'm so excited that I finally get to talk to him and get in his business. Please welcome Karim Lateef. Hey.
Hey, what's up? Greetings. What's going on?
Greetings.
Happy
How
Sunday.
are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Happy Valentine's Day.
Same to you. Happy Valentine's Day to you too.
And you got to say it with an M because, you know, we Black. Valentine's.
Yeah, Valentine's.
Right, you got to say Valentine's. Otherwise, it's not the real joint. All right. I am like so excited that you are here because, you know, you and I talk all the time offline, and we had to reschedule from the last time. So it's fitting that on the day of love, I get to talk to one of my favorite brothers. So I asked this question at the beginning of the show. How are you doing today?
Amazing.
Oh, good.
Amazing. Really. I mean, it's crazy around me, you know what I'm saying? But I'm learning to control my own thermostat. So, you know, it's good.
Good. Learning. Talk to me about controlling your own thermostat.
You know, for me, I'm a victim of negative self-talk.
Okay.
So I'm a huge victim of that. You know, I feel like it's a war I've been battling for a long time. So I'm just learning now to like wake up in the morning and tell myself it's gonna be a good day. Just kind of like speaking into existence. And that's new. Now I'm no guru. I don't want to take this picture like I don't want everybody hitting me up like, yo, you should write a book. No, very new. I've been a negative. I'm the biggest hater to myself sometimes, you know. So
yeah,
this is very new, and I feel like that new change in my outlook on life has been transformative. You know, like I said, there's a lot of things going on, and if I succumb to the external environment, I'll be out of it. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't be able to function. So I just started to take back that power.
Tell me where you think, because I love that we're jumping right into it, but I'm wondering, because I think a lot of us are victims of that. You know, the conversations that we have in our head can be very debilitating. Where do you think that habit comes from? Do you remember when you think back in your subconscious when you first started noticing that was part of your makeup?
Yeah, that came from when I was a kid. That came from just, you know, my external environment. People were very negative around me, you know, not necessarily my family, although my family, you know, succumbed to it as well. Like definitely they're not, you know, it wasn't absent in their lives as well, but just my negative environment. Like, you know, I came from a rough environment and, you know, basically any little progress was made, you know, somebody would try to pull you down. Mm-hmm. So, and then, so it was constantly that, you know, constantly like every little step I take, somebody would be there to kind of push me back. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I started to just, you know, wonder, was I good enough? Mm-hmm. You know? And then even when I became good enough, I was too embarrassed to talk about myself because it's like, oh, you're a nerd, you know, or, you know, you're this, you're that. So it was really no space to kind of just be, you know, so I just kind of stayed in my head and all these conversations I had in my head. So that's kind of where everything happened, you know. It took, and to be honest with you, Kat, and you know this, like the more you study and learn your history, your people, and you learn the reality of what's happening in the world, it can drive you to that point of negativity. You think there's no hope sometimes. You're like, oh, wow, what's the point? Crazy. Like, we've always been in a struggle. We've always been this. Like, look at every freedom fighter that's fought. You're like, they all died. Like, it's like you can constantly like get into this realm of thinking that there's a ceiling,
right?
Your progress, a ceiling to your growth. So at least, you know, so that's something I had to battle with.
And at what point do you realize that, one, what you're hearing is negative self-talk, two, that it's part of your conditioning, and three, that it really isn't true? Like, how do you kind of disperse the talk and get on with it?
I had to find peace in other people's stories. I had to look at more Black stories of success, look around me, not even like just on TV, look around me. I had to start looking for it. Once I started looking for it, I started to attract people that have broken through, that have been successful, you know, at breaking through the cycle, breaking through this negative talk, negative thinking. And, you know, so it's amazing. Like once I turned on this type of thinking, like the universe started to send, resources and people to me, information to me to help, sustain this way of thinking. So if you're not aware that it's even out there, you're not going to find it.
Right.
I know this is cliche, but now I feel like inspiration meets you when you're out there working.
Mm-hmm.
It meets you in action.
Right.
I was sitting back, like, in my head, just waiting to be inspired, waiting for the information to come to me. But once I start going out seeking it, once I start doing projects like what I did with you, like you mentioned earlier in DC, during that time, I was happy, and more information started coming to me, more people started coming to me, more assets and things like that. But the more I stayed in my head, negative, I got more negative things coming to me. I got more of what I didn't want came to me as long as I was doing more negative thinking, so it's just, I'm still learning this, and I'm probably rambling around this.
No, I love it.
It's still very new to me. I'm just observing and taking it in and just processing it. But it's very real.
Listen, I mean, you say you're not a guru, but I mean, your story is real. We've had lots of conversations. I'm just so excited because I know the progress. I know what it's taken to get you to this point, and yeah, it's dope. You sound like one of them new Christians.
Right, but the only difference, I'm not out there pushing on everybody.
You're not pushing it,
but tell my own story. I'm not gonna show up at your door.
Right, telling you why the way you doing it is wrong. Right, I appreciate you. I'm sorry. No disrespect to Christians, but
yeah, we love y'all. We love you. Happy Valentine's.
When you get new, y'all get real pushy. So
I don't want no smoke. I don't want no smoke at all. Sure, I love y'all.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm trying not to be silly. Okay, so let's talk through. So you are the senior culture manager for Pernod Ricard now. When I met you, you were Diageo. So my part of my story is very much melded in liquor branding. And we know that when it comes to Black people and liquor branding, there's a whole sort of method of how things, kind of pop off. I remember we did Smirnoff together. We've done Crown Royal together. And this whole idea around branding Black and branding to Black people has been a big part of your story so far. And I want you to tell us a little bit about how you started, because at least from my view, you had to really force this understanding that Black people, one, are people, two, are not a monolith, and three, that culture is a very important aspect of what branding, what successful branding can entail.
I mean, yeah, because you say I had to do that. I'm still doing it. It's still a journey. It's still education. My whole life in this industry has been around education. So for me, I didn't look for the liquor industry, to be honest. I wanted to be in culture. Mm-hmm. I want to definitely be in arts and culture. That was always my thing. And so when I before I was in the industry, I was doing a lot of just traditional, like CPG or traditional consumer packaged good companies. I was with Black & Decker. That was more so in the home improvement and construction industry. It wasn't necessarily something I was interested in. Far from culture. I guess you can tie it not, but at that time it was far from culture. So I fell back, when I got my MBA. And once I got my MBA, that's when kind of doors opened up in the liquor industry. So I got a call to join Diageo organization and at that time, I had to accept the sales role, and this is why I tell people, sometimes, be clear on your destination, but be comfortable, be flexible with the route to get there. Because if I had not accepted the sales role, I probably would have never been in the liquor industry. At the time, when they reached out to me, they acknowledged that, hey, you have an MBA, we get it. We don't have a job for you right now. So that is reflective of your education and your experience. However, if you come on board and you work and you kill it, you will be promoted, very quickly into marketing. And they kept their promise. I will say they kept their promise at Diageo. So I joined in Philly after I finished grad school there as a sales rep. And at that time, it was easy for me to accelerate because multicultural marketing was very new. Even though it's been dabbled and dabbled over the years, no disrespect to the predecessors who have attempted to, advance that particular segment. But it hadn't really gone too far, So when I got in there, with my curiosity, my experience, I was able to move through very quickly because the company had very limited cultural competency. So I was in that sales role doing marketing, doing a marketing job as well. I was doing experiential. And most people, when they do sales, they just kind of, sell. That's it. They just sell the product. They lean on trade marketing or lean on marketing organizations to kind of give them the tools they need to sell in what they're selling in. But I was doing everything because there was nobody to go to.
Right.
So they saw that. So, from moving from Philly, that's when I moved to DC, and that's when you met me. I moved, I think, 5 months before President Barack Obama was inaugurated. So I was able to jump on that inauguration and do a lot of cool stuff around that. But yeah, so it's been an ongoing thing. Like you got to understand that only 3.2% of executives in alcohol beverage industry are Black. Only 3.2% of them, a senior manager at my level or above, 3.2%. So, I mean, I am definitely an outlier. And then only out of 3.2%, as an African-American executive, you got to make a lot of decisions, whether you're going to push the boat, whether you're going to rock the boat, whether you're going to be provocative, whether you're going to, reach far and potentially fail to learn. And that's a huge dilemma you have to each African-American executive have to come to, because, keep in mind, whatever you do is magnified times 100 because there's not that many of you. Right. Whereas a white executive could potentially make a mistake. There's a larger margin of error. You can make a mistake and you may be okay because you're not necessarily on the radar as much. You know what I'm saying? So everything I did was a risk because there was nothing else like it before. So it was constant pressure to over-exceed, overachieve, over-educate, over-communicate the results. So that's why when I came to you and I worked with you, it was amazing because you were an outlier and you actually, what you didn't know, you were willing to learn and you activated it. Whatever I was able to share with you, you were able to put it into your practice. Same with you, I learned things from you. I was able to put it into my practice. It was a good marriage in that way.
We had fun, man. I miss those days.
Yeah.
We had a good time. And it was, I remember because the first event that you sponsored was when Harlem came to Paris. Shout out to Gerald Watson, who was like, hey, I know this cat, Karim. I think he might be interested. And 10 Cane Rum was the first. I'd never heard of it.
Yep.
Used it at the event and got everybody like hot toddied up. It was so much fun. And, I still have, because we also used Crown Royal, I think that for that first one. I still have one of the red boxes. And what I did was I put "Don't open till Paris." I still have it.
That's crazy. Wow.
And I'm not going to open it until I do an event in Paris. Like one of my goals was to recreate when Harlem came to Paris in Paris. So every time I go in my kitchen, I look at it and it's like, I'm still here. So
that's crazy.
It's a bucket list thing. Yep.
Wow. That was probably one of my favorite events because it was so theatrical. It was such an experience. Like it was so, it was a timepiece.
It was. I'm very proud of that. But from that point on, like we killed it. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Like because I had tried to work with other brand people before, and one of my favorite things was I can't remember who it was, but it was someone from Diageo who said, "Hey, Kat, can I ask you a question?" I was like, "Sure. Can we get more diversity in the pictures?" I was like, what? She was like, "Can we get more diversity?" I was like, you need more white people." And then there was this pause. And I remember thinking, God damn it, I hate this. So I called one of my good white friends and I was like, "Hey, David," I was like, "I need some white people." He was like, "I got you." And there was this understanding, like, it's okay for white hipsters to have like, rubber duckies in a pool and it be an all white photo shoot and nobody has a problem with it. But when you saw a bunch of Black people having a good time being Black, then it was like, can we have a little bit more diversity? And I was like, wow,
that always happens. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. And so I learned, like you taught me how to, because that's not my world. I don't really, somebody asked me, well, what do you care? What about white culture? I'm like, I'm not concerned with that. And so I don't think about white people when I create. I think about Black people because that's my job. And so working with you was a huge, like, I knew that even if I had to deal with this, I could always go back to you and say, how do I handle it? Or how do, and sometimes you stepped in front and you shielded, so I didn't have to worry about it. You were like, don't worry about it, go do what you do. And that was probably one of, as a creator, having the resources, because there was money, and being told create, and I'll take care of the other stuff. That was probably one of the most, that was one of the richest times of my creative life, because I could just create. I could just be a visionary. And so thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. That was a beautiful time for me too, to be honest with you. It stretched my creativity. And it kind of helped me during that time. It helped me even more to learn how to translate culture to corporate executives. So I had to translate that in a way that they understood it, in a way that essentially you could still be creative, but in a way it delivered to the bottom line, delivered to deliverables. It laddered up to the overall strategy they were trying to accomplish at the company. So I went through some times during that time, and helped refine my language, how I speak to them. So yeah, it was really good for me too.
It was interesting. That bottom line piece was also something that I had to learn. And I remember us going through, because one of the things that we did is I had a team. Shout out to Candace. Shout out to, oh gosh, there were so many people. Kelly, I'm forgetting someone. I know I'm forgetting someone. But there were some people who, like, when we did the Smirnoff thing, we had a rhythm of how we would send in reports. And I remember one of the people from Diageo was like, we've never had anybody send in reports the way you send in reports. And I was like, yeah, because Karim needs this information, so we got to get it to him. And then you all asked me to come to New York and talk about how, because I didn't realize that with our efforts, DC had done really well when it came to the Smirnoff campaign, when the with the DJ show, the Master of the Mix. And that was, it was powerful.
Yeah, that was amazing. That wasn't, a lot of times creatives don't really think about the business side. They don't, and the reason what made our job so easy working together was that you made my job easy too. Because otherwise, like, I would have had spent so much time working on trying to gather that report myself and trying to translate it myself. Because as you know, like, there's going to be some people from the office that's going to come to the event, but 99% of people are not going to come to the event. They're going to live vicariously through the videos and through the recap, everything like that. So there are certain things that they care about that they want to see that they weren't able to see in person, that they need to see in that recap. They need to see either in the recap or how I communicated to them. So you made my job easy. So I stopped working with people that didn't make my job easy. So after working with you, it was like the bar was set. I'm just like, nah, it's gonna be too much work for me. I have other things to focus on. I have 30 brands. This is one brand, one event. So you make my job easy. I gotta work smarter, not harder. So you made that job so much easier for me. So that's why it was so synergistic. Everything we were to do.
When you moved, like, a little piece of me died. I was just like, what am I gonna do now? Like, it was like your absence, I think, still reverberates. Like, I don't know that I would say, like, across a lot of us, particularly Black culture creators, when you left, there was a hole there, because what ended up happening, like, I'm an outlier. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And you were able to say, but there's value here, because Black people are not a monolith.
Right.
It's a bunch of different things. And I think Audio Trip was one of the events that really sort of encapsulated what Black culture looks like in its various forms. So yeah, when you left, it went back to norm, because honestly, I had been shut out in a lot of those spaces because I was doing things that were cultural first. So even if it was a performance, there was a cultural aspect to it. And a lot of people just didn't get what I was doing. The people that got it loved it, but everybody didn't get it. And so being able to say I have a liquor brand supporting me turned everything around. It made everything a lot easier.
See, what you were talking to me, I'm more of like and no disrespect to anthropologists. I know they go to school for that or whatever, but I was more of like a cultural anthropologist inside the company. So I studied culture. Like, I really care about the depth of culture. And that's something that you're not going to get from the many executives at a company. So I wasn't necessarily looking at the surface, lowbrow culture exclusively. I was looking at high culture, like, just expansive, experimental. I wanted to show the breadth of Black diaspora. So like that was something that I brought to Diageo, and you happen to be, we happen to cross paths during that time.
Right.
Whereas, and again, like I said, you got to understand, and that's why I don't hold my other like African American executive colleagues account. I don't like try to make them look bad, because I know the pressure that they go through, and it's a huge risk that you take by taking the path that I follow.
Right.
Like, you take a huge risk. Like, the company doesn't understand you. So me, my story. I'm constantly depressed and down, beat up, because that is something I took on my shoulder to do, to make sure I educate this industry. But at the same time, it's got me far, but not far enough. I'm not in some rooms because I make people uncomfortable, because I am going to challenge them on their thinking. I'm gonna hold them accountable. So yeah, it's a personal cross you have to bear when you're a marketing executive of color, a Black, in this industry.
Do you feel, because one of the things that was very obvious to me at the beginning of this is that when we are talking about marketing to Black folks, oftentimes there aren't a lot of Black people at the table in the room making the decisions. And so I remember with the Smirnoff campaign, there were just things that I was noticing, and it was like, wow, you guys really don't get you don't get us. And if you weren't there, I don't know that we would, like, Master of the Mix, that whole weekly series was so much fun. Like, we built a whole community around just watching the show and yelling at the screen. It was a great time. And when it was done, it was the sad, like, oh, what are we going to do now with our time? But it was very obvious to me with some of the questions or some of the things that we would have to deal with, how much marketing to Black people is not in the hands of Black people.
That's in every industry, though. I mean, I think that I've always been one of the only person in the room, or 1 of the 3%. You know what I mean? One other Black person. So we try to make sure we don't sit together. We sit across the tables and we congregate. It's very.
Don't sit next to me. Don't sit next to me. We got to make it look
let's spread out. Let's be nice Negroes. Let's spread out. It's very crazy. The lack of diversity in this industry. And so I've always been, again, an outlier. I've always been the only person in the room. I tried to recruit. I tried to be involved and get more Black people in the company. But they're not, I mean, a lot of times they're not going to bring Black people in the company, put them at the same levels like that.
Right.
They're going to spread them out across different bands or different, levels. So again, you're still not in the same room.
Right.
So I've been fortunate enough to, over half of my career, actually more than half of my career, be able to green light projects. And like I said, but that's very rare, that you have someone in my position that can green light projects, but then be courageous enough to green light those projects that are not within the expectations of what they've been working with in the past. So I don't know if I answered your question, because I got.
No, you did. I mean, because I think so. Because part of what, because when I think particularly the liquor industry, and I think of nightlife culture, everyone's taking cues from Black people. I think about the juke joints. I think about like Harlem. I think about, even that Chitlin circuit where you had to, if you wanted to be big, you had to, go through the Midwest. There's always a Black owned situation where the music was amazing, the food was amazing, the drinks were good. Like, there was something about Black people and nightlife culture that is very, in my opinion, from my observation, very unique to how we do things. And what I see often is people trying to capitalize on that. And I also see, it reminds me, okay, I'm going to go in professor mode. It reminds me of Paul Laurence Dunbar's We Wear the Mask. So when I think about what I was trying to do in DC, and then I think about the folks that would get the bigger resources, I wasn't willing to wear a mask. And, I would have conversations with folks and they'd be like, yeah, this is not what I want to do, but this is the only way that I'll get the sponsorship money to do what I do. And so even when we think about the fact that for some of those folks, they were creating in, like Paul Laurence Dunbar, to a certain extent, had to write a certain way to get published because, the white folks liked a certain way that he wrote, even though that was not meant to be his only style. He wasn't able to shift because they were comfortable with the way that he was presenting Black people, because they didn't get the nuance. But when I think about some of the, the people who were outliers, I was an all Black situation, mostly Black women. And it was really hard for me to get people to take what I was doing seriously in the sense of support and resources, because I wasn't willing to do certain things. I had to tell somebody once, I'm not a white hipster. You're going to get what you get. So either you take what I'm giving you, or we just can't work together, because I don't really, what you guys want is not who I am. And as a Black woman, it was really hard as a creative person to try to push some of the ideas that I had, because, it wasn't always about, nightlife and in that way. It was a bit different.
But you're not always represented in the boardrooms. That's the problem.
Right.
So, and I'm going to say this, and I know that it may rub some white people the wrong way, and some of my white colleagues the wrong way, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but it's just the truth. So in America, not in America, in the world, white people have to really hold themselves accountable to learn more about other cultures, because they could really. Okay. You guys,
hold on, Karim. Karim, you're breaking up. Hold on, real quick. Okay. Okay, go again.
Can you hear me? I'm still breaking up.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're fine.
My white colleagues, like you guys, have the ability, because you are a part of what you would probably consider dominant culture, predominant culture, as it stands right now. You have the ability to only see the world through your lens. Like, most of media reflects you. Most of content reflects you and your world. So you have to work really hard at understanding other cultures, the nuances, the depth of culture. I'm gonna use that term, like the depth of culture, not just the surface. Whereas African Americans, we often have no choice. Like, we have to learn white culture, if there is a such thing as white culture. We have to learn Italian culture, all these different cultures, depending on where you live. We have to learn our own. We have to learn every other culture. We learn it through school, through the teachings, education, through just observing, through when we get our first jobs. We're constantly learning the world, whereas everyone else has the luxury to stay in their own silo. So that is reflected in corporate America as well. Like, they have the ability to just see their world. So a lot of times that's reflected in the marketing. So that's why when a person like you coming on as an outlier that's representing a side of Black culture they've never seen, you're going deeper into the culture, it's a shock to them. It's like their body, their mind rejects it, because they don't understand how to communicate, how to translate that, how to even articulate that. How do you explain from when Harlem went to Paris in a board meeting just to a room of all white people, and you have no cultural understanding of the Harlem, legacy, Paris connection, the diasporic, stories. You don't have the cultural context to even explain that, and it's uncomfortable to talk about. So you have to have equal representation across the corporate landscape in order to be able to green light and bless those projects, and being able to also translate it so you get more funding. It's not enough of us. It's not enough of. It's a lot of us on the content creator side, but it's not enough of us on the green lighting side. It's not enough of us on that side, So we got two things we can do. Either we can people like myself continue to push through this industry and help recruit more people like myself, with their own perspectives as well. But I'm not saying exactly like me, but more people to reflect what's represented in society. Right. Or what I was trying to talk to you about earlier, we need to develop a Black fund that can fund these more experimental projects, and we reinvest into ourselves, kind of like what Charles D. King did with this Judas and the Black Messiah project. Like, I think he put up like 60% of that money.
Yep.
So like, we have to be able to do that. We have to be able to fund our own projects, and we have to be able to create our own KPIs and our own define what success look like for ourselves. And then, we don't have to worry about that. But the challenge over the years has been that, we have had this strong relationship because a lot of what we create depends on the dollars from corporate America. We have to change that paradigm, so yeah.
And I think about that, and I know when we talked about the Black Fund, because we spent a lot of time trying to envision what that would look like. But there's still anti-Black sentiment within the Black community. You know what I'm saying? So we would also have to be, there's like the outward fight in terms of, sort of supposed white supremacist thinking that, you know, my lens is the only lens. But there's also the fact that even within the Black community, because of that conditioning, you know, we have to fight that battle too. And so I'm all for a Black fund as long as it allows, like, for us to not be a monolith within ourselves, because I think, you know, oftentimes that's what we have to deal with. Everybody doesn't necessarily. I mean, there are Black people who didn't get when Harlem came to Paris. They're like, why is she doing that?
And they're not going to get it.
And it's,
they're not going to get
fine,
it.
But, you know,
I'm going to live. I mean, I understand that. That's why, like, part of my job in marketing, as you know, I think I told you this before, was, I mean, I try to translate culture for non-Black people. I try to translate the culture of brown and Black, you know, stories and stuff like that. But my main goal is really to rebrand Black people to Black people, because, like, we need to understand that we're excellent. We need to see that.
Right.
And again, I don't fault them. We all kind of suffer from this condition, but we got to understand. But so, like, I used to think, like, oh man, all Black people are going to unify and we're going to do all this big stuff. I don't have that romantic idea anymore. For me, I just want Black people to unify around certain things. Like, our stories need to be told. Like, you know, let's agree on that. Our stories need to be told, whether they're diverse, however diverse they are. Let's agree on that. Right. So I had to learn the difference between unity and uniformity. So I was thinking, like, uniformity, that we all got to think the same. We got to be doing this. Everybody got to be like, no, that's never going to happen. Like, that's never going to happen. I think people need to go ahead and, like, put that to rest. That's not going to happen ever. We're too far gone into this conditioning.
Amen.
Let's just agree that Black stories need to be told across all the spectrums. Right. You know, when Harlem came to Paris, need to be told. You know, Blacks in corporate America need to be told. You know, Black Latina stories need to be told. Like, these are all the stories need to be told, and they're not all going to be the same. And once those stories are told, then again, white people will learn, but also Black people will learn about the depth of our own culture. Right. So that's kind of what I'm about now. I'm about, like, just unifying around, like, protecting and telling Black stories, you know, across the board, the wide-ranging stories. And
hello to all there's a lot of rock stars in the chats right now. Shout out to all of these folks. Hey, Miriam and Anika.
What's up, everybody?
Black bands, Nubian Human, like, that's a dope Black brand. Cheryl Wade, Geronimo.
Oh, what's up, y'all?
Yeah, Black Pepper Papery. I mean, there's some dope Black brands in the chat. So I really
Black brands.
A lot of dope Black brands.
Cheryl. And
I'm
saying names as they popping up on the screen. I'm not saying what you're saying as much, but
oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Live, but
oh, I'm sorry. I thought you
love all of y'all.
All the comments. So here's the thing, though. We have talked a lot about Black branding and branding Black, and, you know, in this white guilt economy, which is slowly fading. Let's be honest. White people are going back to the way they were. They're no longer feeling guilty. But I remember with a lot of my friends who have, like, active Black brands, they were getting a lot of, you know, let me buy Black, let me purchase Black. And a lot of white folks were showing their support by buying Black. And it was cute for a minute, but then, you know, it's going to die off because really it's just all part of the trend. We know that in order for a business to thrive, and when I say thrive, I mean being able to meet your inventory needs, sell, you know, get a return on your investment, pay your mortgage, take care of your children if you own a business. We know that part of that corporate support can be to help creatives actually survive. And we've talked a lot about this, and I wanted you to share with the folks because I think some of your ideas are really important on how do you brand Black in the mainstream without losing your soul.
To be honest with you, it's a little easier now. I'm gonna tell you why. Right now, it's easy because content is king. So the consumers for these brands are getting very smart. Like, they're holding these companies accountable to the content they put out, to the people they have behind the scenes, the Black representation. So I think that what I would suggest that, you know, creatives do is focus on your content. Focus on making amazing content that your audience finds culturally relevant. Very important. That your audience finds your content culturally relevant, your engagement is going to go up. And that's what companies are looking for now. Companies are looking for engagement. They're looking for the conversation. Like, how's the conversation going? Like in this chat I see now, how is the conversation going around what you're talking about?
Right.
Through the conversation, they're able to measure what we call sentiment. And sentiment is how do you feel about the content? So it's not even about what you're posting, it's about how do people feel about the content? Does it make them happy? Does it make them sad? Does it make them want to learn more, explore more? Are they saving the content afterwards to go back and look at it? All these little things like that is stuff that companies are looking at. Companies are looking at from the content you create. And that's something that companies are not good at. So what I see happening is that, it's going to be less about the agencies creating content for the companies. It's going to be more about content creators creating content for the companies in their own voice in a way that resonates with the audience. And I say that I'm not just pulling this out on my mind. Like I'm very confident in this because I'm not sure if all of you guys have heard of Nielsen, but Nielsen is it's like a research and tracking company that tracks, viewership of certain shows and viewership of content online, and they report that back to the companies, and that's how they're able to decide what shows they want to advertise on and stuff like that. Right. So Nielsen has a tool that they're creating that basically can track cultural relevance. So basically, not only are they showing like how many eyeballs are looking at a show, like whatever, Martin or whatever it is, now they can track like the cultural relevance of that show, like the depth of people that's looking, the sentiment and things like that, how culturally relevant they find that show. So now companies are getting smarter. Now they're able to, okay, I'm not going to just advertise with this show just because Black people watch it. I'm going to advertise with this show. I'm going to affiliate with this content because Black people love it. Like they are sharing it. They are inspired by it. Right. They're inspired to be like these characters on the show. They connect to it. So that's the level of complexity that these companies are moving towards, and that presents an opportunity for content creators and creators in general to stick to your guns and be very authentic and find out what your audience wants and deliver that. So yeah, that's definitely something that I wanted to let you guys know.
So when you get say you as a content creator, I don't know, Ellen DeGeneres comes to you and says, hey, we love your content. We would love for you to create for us. How do you make sure that you don't lose your way? Because usually what happens is that Black people create some dope shit. Everybody loves it. But let's be honest, a lot of folks don't like dealing with Black people directly. And the content that I maybe as a creator was creating initially on my own was widely available to the people that wanted to see it because, I'm out here doing whatever. But once I now get pulled into a corporate scheme, as it were, the content may have to change because now they're like, you need to appeal, or there may be this idea now that over time, I'm slowly being pushed out of my own content creation. So what are some of the things in your opinion, brands, like how do you protect your content and your intellectual property? Like when I'm creating experiences, like Audio Trip in and of itself is not the amalgamation of all of these things is not new. It's just the way I did it was kind of fly. It was fun. And it was, the theme around the airport piece was really dope. Yeah. But what prevents, because it's you, I felt completely confident that I could do this and I didn't have to worry about seeing Audio Trips show up somewhere else without me. But how do I protect what I'm creating? Because when you get pulled into these spaces, there's a lot of contracts being signed and all these other things and these expectations. And whereas before, maybe I didn't give a shit. Maybe I just went with the 30,000 likes that I had, that it was proof that I was doing well. And now you come in with Nielsen ratings and KPIs and some more stuff. And I'm like, why? I don't care about this. Someone go in a little bit more prepared.
I'll be honest with you. That's still something that's a struggle. Because like again, there's just a misalignment and misunderstanding of what Black culture is and the depth of what culture is. So I would just tell those creatives that all money ain't good money. Like you can't force a relationship. Like if you are going to work with a creative, with a corporation, and they're pushing you out and they're making you compromise your authenticity, it's not worth it, because most important than the corporate relationship is your audience relationship. So that goes back to what I was saying earlier. If the relationship is going to require you to compromise your authenticity and your audience start peeling off, your audience start like, oh man, Kat, what you doing? That's corny. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. That's going to affect your long-term paper. because now your sentiment is going down. Now what your currency that you have is losing value because they're seeing through the compromise. So you have to hold your gun, understand that all money ain't good money. And sometimes, slow growth is better than no growth. Sometimes you may have to, fall back on the amount of projects you want to do, until you find that right partner. And also what I would advise you to do too is either do this on your own or get you a business manager that is able to connect with these executives like myself and follow them. So instead of following a company, follow the executives. The executives make the brands don't make themselves. So like follow executives around to whatever company they go to and keep that relationship going. And maybe they can continue to work with you and keep that synergy going, because the brand, once a leader leaves a brand and a new leader comes in, it's a whole new ballgame. It's a new leadership. Right. People get confused between the brand and the people. Like brands are just nothing. Brands are nothing. What drives these brands are the people, the leaders, the truck drivers, the retailers. Like that's what makes these brand ecosystems who they are. And then we all agree that these brands are valuable. But at the end of the day, these brands are nothing. They're lifeless. So you gotta the memories that you and I have of Crown Royal, that wasn't Crown Royal, that was Kareem and Kat doing that. You know what I'm saying? Crown Royal was the background picture. That was the landscape. But in terms of who was moving the needle, who was driving it, that was myself and my team and you and your team. And that's what people, when they look at Crown Royal, they see the value in that brand. The brand benefits from that, but it really was the people that made that happen behind that brand. So I would say definitely follow executives on LinkedIn, share your work with them, be patient because they have a lot going on. And they have a lot of you, not saying you in terms of your capability, but a lot of people reaching out. So just make sure you're patient. Make sure you understand all money ain't good money. So protect your currency that way. Understand it might take, you may not be able to do 5 or 6 projects like you were able to do in the past. If a new person comes in, for example, maybe it's one project and you take that project, do a great job with it, and you sell it off to somebody else and another company as a best practice or a case study to get more support. But then also start building your own capital. Like charge enough that you can pay your team, make your profit, and put more money back into the business. So you create your own fund. Because they're gonna with these brands. So with me, Kat, when I work with you, you were kind of just getting started too, as well. In a certain lane. So that's rare that an executive work with a new fledgling company. That's also growing. Most time executives will want to work with somebody that's already established. Right. They already got like this big, following and things like that. So that's very rare. So what I will say, for people when they're first working with an executive, try to spend a lot of time getting a good example of what that company stands for, what that executive stands for, what their goals, what their vision is. That's going to tell you if your relationship is going to be long-term, it's going to be short-term, it's going to be a headache. Right. Try to learn about the people that you sit across the table from. And that's something that I think creators make the mistake of. They become so caught up in their silos. Like, I'm so dope. Oh my God, look at what I got going on. This is crazy. I'm going to kill them. They don't spend no time at all learning about who they're working with. And that's why a lot of artists in the record industry get caught up. That's why they get bad contracts, everything. They're so excited about what they bring to the table. And finally, somebody pays a little attention to them. They jump on a contract, do any research behind the company, who they're dealing with. But you got to come in just as armed as they are. Because they're armed. They're armed. These corporations, they got a corporation. These executives got a corporation behind them. They're armed. They know exactly what they want. They have the vision. They're a few steps ahead of you. So you got to be just as smart. You got to understand this is all a game. You got to understand this is all a game. You got to play it well. You got to definitely go in with. You got to bring your heart, bring your mind with you. Basically, bring your brain with you. That's what I can tell you.
So I'm going to ask this because I feel like there are too many creatives on this thread that need to know. Are you mentoring people?
I get that question all the time.
Listen, you need to create a whole little mentoring group of folks because this is really important knowledge. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. It's the Black women you need to get behind because
you know me. That's all I've been doing. That's all I've been getting behind.
You need to get behind these Black women who are out here doing these amazing things, who could use this insight, because there are so many dope Black women that I think if, like, Tony Blackman is on here, Elise Perry's on here, Mercy, Hadia, Cheryl, like Cheryl's been doing amazing things. Like, there's some amazing Black women. Like, if you just want to create a DC hub of dope ass Black women, I can arrange it. We can have weekly meetings. I'm just saying.
That's my song. I've always wanted to, work with Black women, just like I work with you. I work with so many other Black women as well in DC. In terms of even the ambassador relation, like once we started to employ ambassadors for brands in DC, majority of the ambassadors I work with in DC were women. To be honest with you, you know that, you saw that. I was the first executive that we put these women in ambassador role.
Yep.
There was no other women in ambassador role before I did it. So y'all always been advocate for Black women since my career started. So that's nothing but a thing. The only thing for me is that I just want to make sure I have time and create space for people. I don't want to like collect people. I don't like collecting relationships. I don't like collecting people.
Right.
I want to make sure that I have enough time to really nurture people in a way that's going to be valuable to them and valuable to me. And
right.
I want to do my research to make sure that people that I connect with don't waste my time, to be honest with you. Because
I would not bring you time wasters, just so that you know.
Thank you. I want people to be match my energy. Basically,
I got 5 people right here that's gonna match your energy. Because they in the thread happy right now. Come on.
Yeah, sure. I've continued to work with some women here in Atlanta, to be honest with you. And I was disappointed in how things kind of turned out with a few of them. So it kind of scarred me a little bit. I'm gonna be honest with you. So I would say definitely. I want to make sure people match my energy.
Yep.
Make sure that they are willing to learn. And make sure they are willing to accept some losses too. Like, people, it's not going to be win. All we do is win. Like, you got to understand sometimes, like, you're going to get rejected. You're going to get some L's. But it's what you do with that. You know what I'm saying? I took a lot of L's. I got rejected a lot. I'm getting rejected now. It's a lot. So, like, I just want people to understand that. You know what I'm saying? Like, we live in such a microwave popcorn world right now. Popcorn world where everybody wants, like, success overnight. I know the people in your audience, they're here because they're on the same frequency we're on. So I get it. I'm not talking to you. I'm just saying in general, the masses.
No, I get it. And the reason I'm saying this, so I'm going to say this on TV or whatever this is, it is the Gen X Black women, the 40 and over women who, for whatever reason, they got time and energy right now. And I'm telling you, that is where a lot of this amazing content and these dope experiences, and just even the there's so many ways that I'm watching my sisters, like, even in the midst of a pandemic, like, do amazing things. And it's hard when you're doing all of this stuff by yourself. Like, I would love, like, shout out to Dana Walker, who keeps me, like, from going crazy, but I would love to have a producer so I don't have to push buttons and figure out all these other things. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so when I think about what I loved about working with you was that I never felt like I was being talked down to. Like, I have been in rooms where I've literally had to be like, absolutely, I don't negotiate with terrorists, so I'm leaving this room because I don't have anything to prove to anybody. But with you, it felt like you met me where I was, but there was no condescending sort of tone with it. So the things that I was learning from you and your willingness to open up and be in an exchange was really a big reason why I think we were successful. Because a lot of dudes ain't open to getting feedback.
Man, a lot of dudes, they not, especially not from a woman, like they're just not open to that. For me, I mean, and I'm not underestimating, like, you're a quintessential creative, you know what I'm saying, and brilliant mind. So for me, coming in with you, I'm looking at opportunity like, yo, I'm about to learn as much. I'm about to like be a sponge as well. I'm not coming into you like, y'all more intelligent. I got this. Yeah, I understand. I have way more knowledge when it comes to corporate environments and how corporation work. But you're a teacher, you're an educator in culture, so like, I'm coming in like, okay, I'm about to learn as much. I'm about to learn. I'm about to just be a sponge. So I'm gonna let you lead, in that way. And I'm gonna support you in the best way I can from my angle with my resources and assets and relationships.
Right.
So this is a different mindset, what I'm saying? I'm a different breed because my mom raised me well. That's all I can say. My mom and dad raised me well. That's all I can say. Like, they raised me to respect people, to respect women, and you're not going to get too far without it because women rule the world. I'm not just saying that to get applause. We got mostly women in here, but like, that's a fact. Like, if you look at women making purchasing decisions. If you're a marketer and you're not going after women, black women in particular, like you're dumb. You're a dummy, absolute dummy, because black women drive culture on so many levels. Drive culture, drive movements. I mean, Black Lives Matter. That's like the term. That's like, oh my God, it's amazing. Black women, like it's just like every single thing, you know, that drives culture and makes business go around is kind of like in some form or fashion propelled and initiated by black women. So absolutely. I am absolutely comfortable with that fact. And yeah, I hold it dear.
The goddesses are ready, dude. Like,
yeah, I tell you.
I've lit a match on something, so we're gonna have to figure out how to make this happen. I think that, what time is it? I'm over here. I'm so excited. Like, I knew this was going to be an amazing conversation, but I'm like over the moon right now. When we think about sort of moving forward, or actually in the midst of this pandemic, what has been, you are, you know, a culture manager for Pernod Ricard, really highfalutin, you know, luxury brands. And we're in the middle of a pandemic where people can't necessarily, with the exception of New Zealand, they're the only ones partying right now. People can't be out socializing. What has the pandemic taught you in terms of branding and pivoting?
Flexibility. It taught me that we're gonna find a way to get out our content. So what's happened during this time is that content is going up. So people have sat around and figured out, okay, I can't go outside, I can't do this, I'm in the house. Now I got to figure out better ways to get this content out. I got to figure out more tools and channels to communicate with people. So you have, you know, the rise of things like Clubhouse and, you know, Fanbase and all these other apps that are coming out. But then also, you know, people have just gotten more, actually, they've gotten better with their content, to be honest. They've gotten better, sharper. People have reinvested. They gotten better cameras. I'm looking like pictures are looking more crispy now. They used to be a little bit, you know, ashy.
Right.
Now they all like
got a little lotion on them.
Okay, I see you. They got a little lotion on them. You know what I'm saying? Lighting's good. People have invested in you know, in themselves during this time. So I mean, I'm actually not necessarily. I have a love-hate relationship with social media.
You do.
But what I can tell, because I'm telling you, I could log off and deactivate my Instagram tomorrow. To be honest with you,
and you really don't like influencers. I know that's one of your pet peeves.
I don't like the term influence. I hate that term. But we all influence each other. It's like anybody who thinks they're not influenced is crazy. You're influenced by everything. Everything you see and digest. It's stupid to think that you are the influencer and you're not influenced.
Right.
I'm sorry, I get heated on that. That's a whole conversation. But I think that people have really stepped up their content creation, you know, and that's something that I've learned to really become a lot more digitally savvy during this time. And if anybody's not stepping up their digital savviness in terms of content creation, in terms of how you analyze data, how you analyze your data, how you put that data learnings that you're getting into work to improve your business, how do you master e-com? So what are people coming to your content for? Your content is just the honey. But what are they leaving with? You know, are you mastering e-com? Are you learning how to, you know, continue the relationship, to keep them more engaged, to drive the conversation offline? So like these are things that by no means am I master it. I'm still learning. But these are things that I would encourage everybody to be learning. Like, how do you, you know, master this time we're in? How do you use this to your advantage to not only capitalize on your audience online, but how do you drive the conversation offline as well? So, yeah.
And for you all, what has been successful?
We made so many pivots during this time. So for us, what's been successful is what's really been successful is like influencer seeding. Like that's something we've stepped up. So like basically, let me give you for example, like let's say you're releasing a film. And this is not something we've done, but you're releasing a film. You're the content creator. I mean, you partner with a Martell or whatever company, you partner with them and you create a kit that knowing that people are not going out to the theater, they're gonna be watching your film on HBO Max or whatever. You create a kit with the Martell, with popcorn, with, you know, glasses, anything you can do to create a very exciting environment inside the home that drives engagement. You create that and you send it out to 100 influencers. And you create that conversation online and offline. Because they're gonna be like, oh my God, look at this. Oh my God, this is amazing, blah, blah, blah. They want to show it off if somebody else doesn't have it. So they want to make sure that Everyone knows that you don't have this, I do.
Right.
And then on top of that, they're going to continue to use those products afterwards. So they're going to talk about it with their friends. And what we do know is that, regardless of advertising, regardless of how much you spend at Super Bowl or whatever, the most powerful form of marketing is peer-to-peer influence. It's word of mouth. So we know that if we create a good experience with people, they're going to share it. They're going to talk about it after that experience.
Right.
So I just learned to kind of take this opportunity to create more of a 360 experience with people. And like Elise said, we're in year 2 at home. So these are things you need to understand. Like hometainment is where it's at. Hometainment is where it's at. Mastering hometainment.
Okay.
Who knows? We got this virus. This virus could mutate. It could be. I'm not wishing this happened, but I'm just saying we have to understand the realities of the world we're living in now. This virus could mutate. We could be back in the house. 6 months. I don't want to be, but we be back in the house. But even if we're not, how do you prepare for that? Potential outcome.
Right.
How are you strengthening your capabilities to help people with their hometainment needs? Right. So that's something that I feel that we've kind of like learned a lot with, particularly Martell, during this time. We really mastered that driving that conversation online through influencer marketing, through seeding and gifting, and also we haven't learned yet, but how to leverage e-com.
Okay. Well, as we're coming toward the end, but I wanted to make sure that I remind everyone, please follow Karim Lateef. He has some nuggets. I love watching his Twitter feed, especially when he's in a mood. It is so much fun to watch.
Oh my God.
You'd be like, why do you people follow me? I'm just that. It's hilarious. I'm never bored watching you. Sometimes I want to.
In the young body, I'm telling you.
I want to call you and be like, what is going on?
I'm your old uncle in the young body. I'm telling you. I'm live with a spaz out any day. Straight up.
It is. I mean, there are days where I'm like, what do I need to call him? What is going on right now? Like, this is crazy. So what I wanted to say was one of the things that I have been like pushing for you is craft brand theory, your consultancy. Because I think that you have such rich knowledge and you're such a great teacher and an encourager that I would love to see you like build that space. So can you talk a little bit about craft brand theory and what are some of the things you're looking to do?
What I'm looking to do is continue on with craft brand theory in terms of rebranding Black people to Black people. So again, I say that a lot, but that's kind of what it's about. Like I want to basically use my assets, use my resources, use my relationships to help amplify these stories that Black people are telling through content, through live experiential events. Also want to, link up with the established creatives like yourself and also the new generation of creatives to mentor them, which, like I said, I'm glad you mentioned mentorship. That is a phase of craft brand theory that I'm looking to get into. But I haven't, like I said, I'm creating craft brand theory now. And then the third, so mentorship, galvanization of the culture, creators, content creators, and then education. Education is big for me. So I have a book that I'm such a perfectionist. Like I need to put this thing out. So this book and the masterclass I'm working on. So these are things that will be products of craft brand theory, and through galvanization of these creatives that we talked about earlier, I hope to help advance their projects. But also, what I'm more interested in is connecting creatives across the diaspora. So I would love to use my connections and resources to connect a cat with a creative in Paris, that creative in Nairobi, what I'm saying, and then get funding from my companies that I have a relationship with to fund a collaborative project. So that's kind of, I'm looking for more ways to link the diaspora, and then show that again we can unify around certain creative concepts without being uniform. So that's kind of what it is. Again, education, community, and what I said the third one was. I'm sorry, it's early. I forgot the third one. Anyway, creative, community, and education.
Yep.
Mentorship.
So perfect is the enemy of done. if Booker T. Washington could put out a an updated edition of his autobiography in years time, years later, then you can start with one version of the book and update it later. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
That's true. That's a fact.
Culture is iterative. So I've had to learn that from the good friend Rome, aka DJ Stylist. He was like, just put it out and you can always build up on it later. Other thing I wanted to say was that this has been an absolute joy. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I would. You said, that you made this comment about, the virus possibly mutating and we have to go back inside. We know that in Atlanta, y'all haven't gone inside at all. I don't know what y'all are doing. Y'all are the reason why we're never going to be done with this thing. I just want you to know.
I think I'm convinced that these people, whatever immune system they have is amazing. It needs to be copied to everyone else. I don't know what it is. If the hookah hasn't stopped. The bottle service hasn't stopped. I don't know what it is, man. I don't know what it is. Just understand that I'm in the house watching like y'all. I'm not out there wilding. So don't call me like, yo, Karim, you at the club? Like, no, I'm actually in the house like a sensible person, watching them on my Instagram, watching them out there too. I wear a double mask when I go to the store because
you are the 80-year-old uncle. This is who
I told you I'm an old man in a young body. I told you, won't catch me slipping. Do not catch me slipping at all.
Oh my goodness, this has been great. Now, when the time comes and we can be out again, what's the first thing you're gonna do?
Travel.
Yeah.
First thing I'm gonna do, because I haven't traveled anywhere, I haven't gone anywhere. I've been just nervous. So first thing I'm gonna do is go to Nairobi, or go to Accra, go to Africa. That's one thing I really want to do.
Okay.
I didn't get a chance to do, obviously.
I know. We were this close, man. It was gonna happen.
That's the first thing I really want to do. Is travel. Hopefully, I can make. I'm trying to go to Mexico City. I've never been before, but that's one thing I want to do first. I may do that before this virus. I may do that very soon. But other than that, I just want to get out and travel. I've been in my box.
Yes. Shout out to getting on a plane and going somewhere that is not here. Thank you so much, Karim Lateef, for hanging out with me. Thank you to everyone who has been actively engaged in the chat. I am going to figure out a way to make it happen so that you all can at least sit with him virtually at least one time, because I do think this girl gang that we got going on in DC, the Goddess gang in DC is ready. We're probably ready to make this happen. Next week, our guest is going to be Roland Seward of Melange Wellness. It's going to be fun. He's probably going to make me work out. He's my trainer and he destroys me every 3 times a week. It's just terrible. Again, I don't know what I would do without you, Karim Lateef. Thank you so very much.
Likewise. Same.
All right, y'all. We are out. We'll be back next week. Be amazing. Try not to stress about the world. And we're out. This culture's not going to make itself. See you later.